The Cubs lose yet another close game, another one-run loss, which pushes them closer to selling at this year's trade deadline, which is now officially less than a week away. 6 days until this year's trade deadline. What will the Cubs do? Which players could be on the move? And does anything the Cubs do in Kansas City this weekend affect their long-term plans? That and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Ring the bell so you know whenever we're dropping some Cubs content. And here is your invitation to our show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball Channel. My name is Anthony Pasquale on Twitter at @Ant_Pasquale3. Make sure to find me on there. I'm always tweeting about the Chicago Cubs. And also find the Cubs Baseball Channel on Twitter or X, however you prefer to call it, Instagram and TikTok. You can find us on there, engage with us, follow us. We're going to be chatting with you guys, dropping some clips from our YouTube shows, and also engaging with you guys via stories and tweets and things like that. So make sure to find us on there and comment just like you do on the YouTube, and we'll make sure to grow this channel on all the different platforms that we can. But ladies and gentlemen, we are officially less than a week away from this year's trade deadline. It'll be Tuesday, July 30th at 3 p.m. Eastern. So we are 6 days away from that fateful trade deadline. I know in 2021, the Cubs had a lot of guys that might be moving and a lot of fears about who might go and where they might go, as the Cubs said goodbye to Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, Chris Bryant. I don't need to keep going. I'm sure you guys all remember that heartbreaking day pretty well. It was gut-wrenching, but a lot of the players that the Cubs got back in those trades are starting to factor into these roster decisions that they're making now. Crow-Armstrong, the Cubs acquired from the Mets in exchange for Javi Baez. Alexander Canario came over. So did Caleb Killian in the trade for Chris Bryant. The Cubs got Kevin Alcantara in return for Anthony Rizzo. And then some of those other deals when the Cubs traded away bullpen pieces like David Robertson netted them Ben Brown in return. And trading Scott Effross netted them Hayden Wesneski in return. So there's a lot of guys on this roster that have been added at trade deadlines. And so Jed Hoyer has a lot on his plate right now. Does he try to preserve what the Cubs have built somewhat so far and kind of half buy, half sell, try to retool and contend for 2025? Does he tear it all down and continue to stockpile prospects like he's done the last few years? Or this is looking like the increasingly unlikely option, or does he buy and try to make a push for this year's playoffs and also try to set the team up for the future? It seems like Jed Hoyer is pretty set on trying to improve for 2025. The Cubs aren't going to be making any rash decisions to improve at this year's deadline to make a push this year that would further jeopardize their future in 2025 or beyond. So they're not going to be trading prospects for a rental player. But what they might do is try to trade for a guy that's under control for quite some time. I know, trading for a guy like Jameson Taillon, who of course the Cubs might be trading away, but that's the type of guy the Cubs might target in a trade deadline like this. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a guy that Mick has discussed on previous shows. Obviously would be a tall price, but he's one of those superstar bats that this Cubs lineup has desperately needed, as they lost another close one to the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday. But with 6 days to the trade deadline, you're going to be hearing rumors for Jameson Taillon and Cody Bellinger as he looks to be getting ready to return over the weekend against the Kansas City Royals or the beginning of next week against the Cincinnati Reds. Mike Tauchman is a name that will circle in rumors. Hector Neris, Drew Smiley, Mark Leiter Jr., some of those bullpen pieces that have really started to turn things around as of late, they're going to be attractive candidates to trade. Justin Steele and Nico Horner are two guys that seem to be in the Cubs' preference, close to the vest, who they would prefer not to deal. But every player has a price. And if a team swoops in and offers a big package, those could be names that you see the Cubs try to trade. Another name that would be interesting, we're not sure which side of the fence the Cubs lie on it, is Ian Happ. Obviously, he could decline a trade anywhere. He has a full no trade clause. But his value is continuing to spike, as is Tyone's and Steele's and Horner's. So we'll see what the Cubs do at this year's deadline. But I think a lot of us would agree that if they short up the bullpen earlier in the season, we could be looking at a wild card or division chase right now. And I think the rest of us would also add that if you had one more power bat in that lineup, it could really lengthen things from top to bottom, 1 through 9. So if the Cubs are able to kind of swing a few deals that make sense for them, cost effective, not only for this season, but for the future, without giving up too much capital and without expending your resources of the future, the Cubs could be back in a winning place as early as next season. And I truly believe that. As Jed said, he has his sights set on 2025 and beyond. Well, the Cubs have some tradable pieces and some chips that they can use to their advantage to make 2025 a winning season. And I truly believe that. But as it stands right now, the Cubs are in last place in the NL Central, now 11 games back of the Milwaukee Brewers, who beat the Cubs yesterday 3-2, and 5 games back in the NL wildcard race. Now, there's still a sliver of hope. 5 games is not the end of the world, but there is 6 teams in between the Cubs and that third wildcard spot. But I will say, over the stretch of the next couple of months, the Cubs' schedule is on the lighter side. And even if they do trade a few pieces and bring up some young guys to play, there's no saying the Cubs couldn't go on a run, especially with some new faces in that clubhouse. I just think we would all agree if the Cubs got there, while they do have solid pitching, I don't think they could get too far, especially with this lineup. So some changes definitely do need to be made for next season, but there's at least some bit of foundation here that the Cubs can try to build off of. But like we said, there is still a season going on, and the Cubs have a 5.5% chance to make the playoffs this year. I believe that's as low as it's been, as well as a 1% chance to win the division after losing 2 out of 3 to Milwaukee this week. The Cubs are off today before heading to Kansas City to take on Bobby Witt and the Royals. He is red hot for the Kansas City Royals, and they're in third place in the AL Central, but turning heads around the American League and around MLB, especially because of Bobby Witt and his MVP caliber type of season. The Cubs are going to be up against their 1, 2, and 3 starting pitchers who have all had some pretty phenomenal success stories this season. It'll be Kyle Hendricks, who's 2-8 with a 6.69 ERA against Brady Singer, who is sporting that 0.3 ERA. That'll be the Friday matchup. Then on Saturday, it's Shota Imanaga Day. He pitches against Seth Lugo, both of these teams' best pitchers. Imanaga with a 2.86 ERA on the season and 8 wins. Seth Lugo with an American League almost best, 12 wins. He trails Tariq Skubal by 1 and a 2.38 ERA. He's going to be in the mix for the AL Cy Young without a doubt. And then on Sunday, it's Javier Assad against Cole Reagan. So keep an eye on that series and keep an eye on any rumors you guys see. If you find them on Twitter or on Instagram, tag us on there. We'll make sure to address them on the show. But we're going to be pretty busy over the next week or so, getting into some of those trade rumors and who we might see go and where they might be going and who the Cubs might be getting back in return. But for now, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure to like and subscribe, get in that comment section. Follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And hopefully we'll be talking to you guys tomorrow with some good news. We'll be previewing the rest of that Royals series and also potentially diving into some trade rumors that pop up over the next 24 hours or so. But for now, thank you guys for coming here and talking some Cubs baseball with us. Go Cubs.